Maybe one day it was a, I think we were in Montenegro.
I appreciate
It's one of yours, isn't it?
Yeah. Just hired there.
She's a big winner. She's a big winner.
All right, sir.
I'm doing well. Thank you. You guys?
I'm fine as breathing.
Yeah.
You got me hooked on the morning now.
Yeah, that's
Make it all day.
a good thing. The morning with the county executive. That's always fun. Actually, yes.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and call our meeting to order, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, please take roll. Christopher Abel.
Here.
Tim Hansen.
Here.
Matthew Phipps.
Here.
Stacy Seldner.
Here.
Matthew Spalding.
Here.
Carrie Trask. And Tony Vostelka.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, and I would, just looking at the consent agenda, is there anything anyone would like taken off of the consent agenda? No? Okay, seeing none, I'll look for a motion in a second to approve the consent agenda. Matthew Phipps, and seconded. All right, all those in favor say, oh,
I just want to say there's no point pulling something off that we already not going to vote against. I'll just vote against the whole consent agenda.
okay, sounds good.
Thanks.
Sure. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries. To the report of the superintendent, we're going to start off with the Act 20 update. Hi, you know, very quick. Yes.
I know. It took me much longer to read through that.
Okay,
The
I
citizens
just wanted
teacher
to
file.
give you guys an overview of something that's coming. So we have plenty of time to be prepared, but just need you to know this is out there, it's being talked about. The CSAs are very involved in getting information out. This act was enacted in July of 2023, and it's a response to the poor reading scores in the state of Wisconsin. If I was going to say what's a big thing in here, it's about shifting the way we teach reading. We have, for many years, not just Manitowoc, but the nation has been teaching reading to kids, including looking at the meaning of words, whether a word looks right, those kinds of things. And the shift is to the science of reading. And so really looking at more of a phonics approach. That's just a very small way of saying it. I can go into more detail later on. But I just want you to know that that's the purpose of this. A majority of the things that need to be done by 2025. So we have quite a bit of time to get things done. As far as curriculum and assessment goes, just some things for you to be aware of. You're going to hear people talk about a reading curriculum purchasing grant. That would be for purchasing curriculum that meet this criteria after a certain date, which we have a curriculum right now with SFA that meets a majority of this criteria. If we were looking at the curriculum that we were using last year and people that are using that curriculum, they will have to be doing some supplementing or changing to a new curriculum to be able to really teach to the science of reading. The assessments, you may have heard talk about PALS assessments in the past. The PALS assessment was a state requirement that we were giving to kids in K2. They are working on choosing a new assessment. We're currently using our FastBridge assessment. There will be a state recommended assessment like there was with PALS coming up. And then they're going to ask for some more diagnostic assessments. So students that are struggling readers, we're going to be asked to use a particular diagnostic assessment to work on finding out what those kids need. A really big thing that will be coming up with us that will take a lot of planning and time is individualized reading plans for students. We definitely have plans with students that are struggling readers now, like we know what they need to work on and we have plans in place. What we'll be doing now is a lot more paperwork, to be honest with you, about that. But one real thing that I am excited about is the process of keeping parents informed throughout. That is a really big requirement. So students that have skills deficits, we have to have goals for them with benchmarks, which we do for many students now. Any student that's not meeting the benchmark though, moving forward, for us that right now would be a lot of students to do that with. I'm hoping that by 2025, we have considerably less students that need that. Weekly progress monitoring, sharing strategies with parents at home. So those are some of the things that would be in those individualized learning plans for struggling readers. Another significant thing would be that by July 1 of 2025, we need to have a board policy in place for the promotion of students from 3rd to 4th grade. And this is going to be some things in there that will be new, would be intensive instructional services and progress monitoring for those students who get to 3rd grade and aren't at benchmark or where they need to be. Like, what will we be doing for them now? And then another thing that will impact us is having an intensive summer reading program for every summer until they are at level. So a student who exits 3rd grade not reading at level, they will be required to do intensive summer school. Of course, parents will always have an option to opt out of something like that, but that would be something that we would be documenting and have parents sign on.
Why would they be given the option to opt out?
Well, parents always get to make choices for their kids.
I guess. Yeah, I guess that's the answer. A lot of things.
So professional development is another thing that will be significantly changing in the sense of Act 20 requires that all teachers that are teaching reading K-3, any principal of a K-3 school, and reading specialists have some very specific training in the science of reading. That training does not, this is a change they just made recently, like this word begins is bolded in here, that it's not to be in place, but that we have that professional development beginning in 2025. One thing I want us to be really careful about is that we don't train too early, just so that we are not like investing. And then maybe like if something were to change, I just think we want to be careful to have all of our ducks in a row and be ready for 2025, but that we don't move too quickly. I think there's a lot of people talking and there's a lot of buzz about this, but I do think we do have a really good amount of time to be well planned.
Heidi, does this program, as I read it doesn't have anything past 4th grade, right?
If your child leaves 3rd grade not reading on level, then yes, you have to have that intensive.
But this whole program is just the first 4 years of elementary school, no? Oh, okay.
If you're not reading at level by the end of 3rd grade, that reading plan stays with you until you are reading at level.
Until you die.
Yep. So just like some information about a timeline for this school year, we want to review the definition of Act 20, the science-based reading definition that's in here, and see how that correlates with SFA, look for any holes that we would need to fill. I think we're going to have a lot of celebrations in that area. We do need to look at our intervention materials and make sure that any interventions that we're doing aren't using that MPSD, that the thing that we are no longer going to be doing that we were doing before, the way we taught kids with meaning and syntax and visual cues. We want to evaluate the status of all of our current interventions, remove the interventions that are based on that MSV process, and then for 24-25 school year, we want to develop a training plan for staff. We need to develop that promotion plan. That's going to be that policy that we'll need to work on and bring to the board for finalization. And then we have to develop that individualized reading plan process. I mean, it's outlined for us, but we just need to develop that and then offer professional development for teachers on that.
Do we have any plans for that? That policy, like who would be the one starting that off? Because I'm sure a lot of school districts are going to be going around asking for opinions and how that's going to work. Is that something we have in plans already for getting that policy
No,
started?
I think it's a
I know we
little,
have time.
Yeah, we have some time, but I think it's really that what will happen with a child that is in third grade, going on to fourth grade and is not yet reading at level.
Right.
So,
It's also highly likely that Neola will pick this because it's a statewide thing.
Right.
And they'll create a template for us that we can present. We can, yeah, all right.
is that my last slide, Keith? Okay. Any questions?
Any questions?
You talked about the SFA gives us a lot of the materials we need, so there might not be a need for purchasing grant.
Well, the SFA wouldn't qualify, our materials that we have already wouldn't qualify for the grant because we already have them. It's for purchasing something new.
Could that be used to purchase materials for special ed kids that need more intervention for reading?
That's a really good question. I don't know exactly the answer to that one, but I'll definitely look into that.
So the other thing they talked about with this is the fact that this grant is a limited amount of money, and they're making it sound like, oh yeah, you're gonna be able to go and buy all these potential curriculum. The honest truth is, they're gonna pull off the top of that grant to hire all of these reading people regionally that are going to need to be paid for first. So they were even warning us in our CISA meeting, like, even if you didn't have this already, likely not as much as you probably think
Thank you.
available.
Any other questions?
Do you see a lot of correlation with the SFA right now, trying to incorporate that now compared to what we used to have? Maybe like ease of getting into providing a roadmap for having the individual reading plans? Is it going in the direction of helping you compared to what you used to have?
I would say for sure. I mean, I haven't done the correlation work yet, but I would say having taught with the curriculum and been the principal with that curriculum and now seeing what this new curriculum has, when you look down the science reading criteria, SFA covers a lot of that in a way that we wouldn't have been able to say yes, yes, yes with our other curriculum.
So a lot of the work, you could say a lot of the work's gonna be done behind the scenes, trying to build a structure, scaffolding around the new requirements of Act 20, using the SFA and then adding, paperwork or whatever you need to follow the requirements.
It is possible that we're gonna find an area or two that we need to enhance, and we will definitely do that, but I think, yeah, I'm feeling really good about where we're at.
And I sent you all the presentation through CISA. They're big on that too, and a lot of things. And one of the components of that presentation was the group of people that has been brought together to pick these assessments and things like that. So, just so you guys can be aware of who those people are. And they have a pretty tight timeline. They were telling us that by January, they have to have a lot of these things, this January, at least some recommendations for what the assessments that they're gonna use. So just keep on top of that. One of the questions I had, Heidi, was I know some professionals in our district have already taken, CISA has put on the science of reading. Do you know if that will count towards this training?
I don't think so. I think that's more of an overview. I think they're looking for something very specific. there are some companies that have what, yeah. I do also know that CISA is gonna send people to be trainers in our area. We could even have one person from our school district go and be a trainer for our school district. So we have to talk out all those options, but we will have training available to us through CISA for sure. That will be fabulous. Cause they're jumping right on this and getting stuff done, so.
One of the things that we will do is make every effort to streamline as much as we can. Like, in Michigan, we have a law very similar to this. And the individual reading plans, I will tell you, are significant. And that's in the amount of time that it takes for a teacher to fill out the forms, to meet with individual parents. And in our higher needs buildings, when you think about half of your class not being on grade level, so that's an additional meeting. We will do everything that we can to use like the tutoring program that we're currently using to help build those, we call them IRIPs, but the individual reading plans, because what we don't want to do is spend more time being compliant than actually serves the child. So we'll be watching for that.
Kind of a parallel to the educator effectiveness, you know, in terms of a requirement, if you're already doing something of that nature, you don't want to have redundancy in there.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Any other questions? Great. Seeing none, we'll move on to our curriculum transparency project.
So this is a project that we started, I believe it was at the end of last year. We gave you a sneak peek of this is what it's going to look like. I want to make sure that there is a lot of praise that goes out to our department chairs. They spent an inordinate amount of hours trying to get this project put together. The goal is to put all of our curriculum in one place, and then it will be outward facing. That's not a technical term, but that's how I visualize it. It will be outward facing on this platform so that anyone can see what the curriculum is. We're going to walk you through some of them that are completed. When we turn this on to be outward facing, our goal is November 14th. And you're going to see that the department chairs have done a tremendous amount of work. This is making sure that things are aligned. K-5, 6-8, 9-12, okay? So let's take a look at a few of them. If you see under construction, it means there's nothing behind there. So, on sixth grade science. Okay, you'll remember that we did an adoption of 6 through 8 science this year. And so every classroom that we have, every subject has a tab, okay? Under the tab is the list of the units that are taught, then the scope and sequence, when they are taught. Then you can click on light and matter. Can you make that larger? So now I'm a new teacher. I can see these are the standards it aligns with for the state. I can see here's the unit summary. So as a brand new teacher, I can go to this resource and find out, okay, what's the essential question? What is it that I want my children to know at the end of this unit?
So awesome.
Okay, so that's here. Then you'll have instructional strategies that are on there, and then some of the lesson parts. So this not only addresses a need to communicate our curriculum with our community, this is a godsend to a brand new teacher. I don't have to chase everything down. It's right here. So you'll see that. So there's lessons, assessments. Some of the assessments we will not have being outward facing. I don't think I need to explain why on that one, but the teachers will be able to see them. Okay? Want to take a look at another one?
That's so amazing.
Let's look at science, because we've got Aaron right here in the audience. So science, high school level, I think AP biology I looked at today. So again, there are the units, and you're going to see there's a standard way that everything looks. So if I go from teaching 2nd grade to 4th grade, it looks the same. Let's click on chemistry of life. Let's see what Aaron has put there. Oh, it's not shared yet. Okay. So it's secret, but it's there and see. This is a project we told you we would have done in October. We were aggressive. I've been out a little bit, but folks have really picked up the ball and run with it. It's something that I think the district can be very proud of, and something that every year we will ask our teachers, give us input. What didn't work, what did? We will make the corrections over the summer. We won't do that during the school year because I don't want Biff to be teaching one thing and then Chris's piecing is off, so he's teaching something different than what Biff taught. So we have a process on how we will be reviewing that up and running. Any questions?
That's great. That's absolutely amazing. That's just awesome.
Tony?
Yeah, this is great, Jamie. Thank you. What were we doing before this? Nothing.
I wasn't here.
Yeah.
So Chris, as a teacher, do you want to tell us what we're
Yeah,
doing?
well, first I want to say, wow, you guys are farther
Yeah.
than I anticipated you would be by this when you and I talked last year. I thought, yeah, you're taking on a huge job.
But remember, I had a team of
Oh, yeah.
people Like the department chairs,
And I,
they embraced it, they worked with it. I mean,
I salute everybody for that, and it'll
Yeah.
help all teachers, not just the new ones.
yeah,
What you used to get were binders about this fat for each subject area. So you'd get one of these for social studies, and you'd get one of these for science, you'd get one of these for, well, you might get 2 or 3 for reading, actually, depending upon your grade level. So that's what it used to be, and that's what you had, not like this where.
And as
Where
an
if-
elementary teacher, you would have all of those binders because you're teaching every subject.
Right.
if the teacher coming in before you didn't take them.
Yeah,
Right, and hopefully everybody got the changeovers.
Yeah.
Well,
But in the summertime, let's say I get hired in the summer and I want to get ready for my class, because I'm just going to tell you, teachers are planners. We like to know in advance. It helps with our anxiety. We want to know, what are we teaching? What's it look like? How are we going to? And this gives them access in the summer. They don't even have to go in the building. They have it. So, I mean, I think this is a huge movement forward for the district. And again, I just have to sing the praises of our department chairs who have embraced this, and this team who has met with someone all along trying to keep this moving forward. So a lot of work went into
Nice
it.
job.
Great job, guys.
Yeah.
Amazing. Seriously.
I'd like to say that one hard thing that I noticed was you'd have a teacher that was been in the district for 25 years, and they would have filing cabinets full. And now,
Sure.
those filing cabinets can actually live on, those experiences, those labs. Yeah, and I know it takes a lot of time to try to put it digitally, but if we can convert that digitally so that the next generation of educators can see those examples, those labs, those experiences, those memories, we can actually transform the education from what happened to that educator 30 years to the next 30 years moving forward after they retire. I remember a teacher gave me all of his stuff, and it was just in vanilla folders. And I looked through it, it was an awe to me. However, now we can give that to everybody in that department or in that whole building and now in the whole district. And that's just from the education standpoint. Transparency wise, this is a great roadmap for everybody to see where we are, where we're going, and where we've been. So this is just amazing. I know that it's still not completely, but it's a living document. If we want to talk about our strategic plan and how we're moving forward, how we're becoming a destination, this is how you do it. You show outward facing what we're trying to achieve, and we can be clear cut about how we're going to get there. So, and if there's gaps, we can fill those gaps in, from previous generations to the next generation. So this is amazing. Like you said, this should have been done 20 years ago. I mean, the internet was there. We had the information. How much information have we lost to this date of the educators that have retired? That's what I was hurting about when I saw the vanilla folders that I was given. And now the experiences can move on if we use this effectively. And I just want to praise the department heads one more time for doing this. I understand it's a work of art and it's going to continue to evolve, but this is the future of how you live on beyond your years of being in the classroom. So thank you.
I'll lay one more thing in. We know that the longevity or the majority of teachers, according to Baird Analytics, is 9 years, right? That's typical. That's your typical, I've lost the word. What's that called? When you're there for a period of time. Tenure. Thank you. It's medication, people. It's age is what it is. Typical tenure is 9 years. So when you think about that, and when I think about the new teachers that as a building principal, I want to try to support, I need them to know where to go to get the curriculum, because we want them all teaching the same thing if they have the same subject, right? And with all due respect, I don't want them pulling out file folders from 30 years ago. I want them with updated curriculum that you as a board have adopted, because that's what they need to be going to. Using our resources.
That's what I'm referring to.
Absolutely.
It's going on to there now.
Yeah. Like
Instead of being lost.
Taking the errands
What's going on?
and having her look at it, we need those experts to give us that information, and that's what we have here. So I'm really proud of everyone that has worked on this, and I think it's going to serve us well.
Great.
So there you go. November 14th.
Show date, bring your popcorn. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, and post-secondary education, people keep all that secret. You know, they do. I mean, you never know, from professor to professor what you're gonna get.
Tricks of the trade.
All right, thank you very much. The next item here is social studies, science and writing process update, and Lee, take it away.
Yeah, good afternoon / good evening. We are proud to report that we're making progress in all of our areas for our review process and adoption. If you remember back to last year, we established a new cycle, a 6-year cycle in which each 6 years, your department area will review their curriculum. How does it stack up upon what's happening in the rest of the nation and what's out there in terms of review for what will best move the needle on learning. So this year, social studies and science are up for that review and adoption. And what I provided you in this memo that is dated October 20th is really just an update as to where we are in that. You'll see up here, as Katie has this up here, these are the years of our cycle, our upcoming cycles in which we'll have reviews up for. I'll also note that, the other thing that we're doing with this is we're also making sure that all of the other curricular areas are not being ignored when it's not their 6 years. For example, this year, we budgeted about $80,000 to help take care of other needs of other areas, because we also know that things come up, outside of those 6 years. That was a forethought as well, and our department chairs met together over summer to distribute that around the needs of the district. So just kind of going through this in science, you'll remember we already adopted at the middle level last year. So we really have elementary and high school. I'll start with elementary because tomorrow, meeting with a team of teachers from almost all of our elementary schools, where we're going to be reviewing a curriculum called Amplify. It comes highly rated by Ed Reports in the recent studies into its effectiveness. We have a person from Amplify that's going to come and do an overview for us. We have physical materials from Amplify to look at units in grades 1, 3, and 4 that they'll be able to handle and kind of look at. I guess it's their version of a binder, Mr. Abel, but it'll be available for them to take a look at. As well as they've also shared digital access for our folks to take a look really at grades K through 5 on that. So we're going to divide up some time tomorrow. We're going to have them dive into those physical materials as well as digital materials, come out with a potential next steps from there. If they're not thinking that that's the best thing since sliced bread, they may ask us to take a look at another thing. Which we most certainly can do and would do, but we're going to get the stakeholder input from our staff who knows, what it's like to be in the classroom every day and executing this curriculum. Our goal is to really be able to bring it to you though sometime in December for a report out on what the committee's work has yielded and a potential recommendation to pilot. Moving on to high school science, before you this evening, you actually have the results of their work, which was after a complete review of their department. And again, thanks to Erin Meyer and her team. They were on this very early on. They knew that it was their turn. They had most of this work done over summer. And so they yielded several textbook adoptions, which you have in front of you this evening. One for an AP environmental science class, one for an environmental terrestrial class, and one for our biggest class at high school, which is biology. So those are before you a little bit later as far as the science is concerned. Switching gears to social studies. Social studies is really looking at elementary wise, we're following the same processes that we're using for science. We're going to have a team of folks come together. They're about 3 weeks behind this. We didn't want them going at the same time because it's a lot to manage. So about the middle of next month, we're going to get that team together to look at. We brought in 2. One is from Savas Publisher. One is from McGraw-Hill. Those were some of the ones that kind of jumped out at us when we took a look at the different ones that are out there. They'll use that same process, likely come back to you. We're really hoping that we would have that recommendation to you sometime in January, where we could take a look at potentially piloting with an adoption in the spring. Lastly, well, I shouldn't say this, it's the same case for middle and high school. The middle level really is, in the social studies department, looks a little differently curricularly than some of the other groups. So as you know, in science, you adopted an integrated curriculum for the middle school level. That basically means that it's set up as a 6-8 curriculum, which builds upon itself to get students ready for high school. Alternatively, social studies doesn't look that way. Social studies is really a standalone based on the standards. So they have like a history class. They may have, what they are doing is they've committed, and the new department chair, Mr. Henry, who is from Washington, is taking this on and talking with his colleagues. They're going to actually look at an integrated approach also, in addition to the standalone approach, and evaluate which may be better for our students. So kudos to them for taking the extra time to do that, because I think it may be worth a look at looking at an integrated piece for our social studies curriculum. At the high school, Mr. Johnson is the department chair, and he's having his crew do that review process that our science folks have done. They're in the midst of that. We will have their recommendations to you also by spring on which adoptions they need. We can anticipate an AP Psych text adoption for sure, as well as potentially a couple of the other courses. An AP U.S. Government and Politics is also looking like that will get recommended as well. And then they're in the midst of reviewing some of the other ones. Of course, the goal with all of this in this cycle is to have those approved curriculum adopted, purchased out of the budget dollars that we've set aside for this process this year. And I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Can I add in there, just so you know, the reason we picked science and social studies, if you'll remember when you were on the board, we did the mapping. We had everyone tell us, when was the last adoption you had? What materials are you using? Science at the elementary level doesn't really have a standard curricula. We've left our teachers to just pull from whatever they could, which they have been doing, and our science scores are actually better than some of the others. The same with social studies. It's very outdated. So that's why those two, because they're core subject areas, went first.
And I'll just also add, the other leaders in our district, I'll use art for example. Art is on for adoption next year. They're already exploring this year. They've met with representatives from, there's a K-12 art program that they're interested in. They're gathering that information to be ready. I mean, because, you know, the other part to consider is, you know, this is on a cycle, but if we're towards the end of a budget year and there might be leftover dollars, we could utilize those, you know, in the most efficient and effective way. Wow, you know, because they're ready to go. So kudos to them for knowing where they're at in the cycle, paying attention to that, and really leading in those areas.
Lee, can you give an example of, and I think I remember what the discussion was, but just to remind me and everybody, the $80,000 that you budgeted in, can you give an example? Was that when you guys made the lists of wants, needs?
Correct.
Like, gotta have right now.
Yep, all of our department heads, it was sort of color coded. Red is kind of like we need it to start the year. Yellow is that this would be nice to have potentially at some point this year. And then there's sort of the dream list, right? So, you know, the good news is that, you know, we were able to provide for those needs. We obviously did needs first. And I think, you know, there may be a few dollars left, but we were able to meet everyone's red requests, you know, for the start of the school year. Yeah.
Is that built into this budget too?
It
Yes.
is. It is.
Okay. Perfect.
All
All
right,
right.
what you'll see is at the bottom, there will be budgeting. I'm not sure it's on this one, but at the bottom, you'll see that there will be budgets for every adoption that we're doing, because what we want to do is work as a partner with Angela in the business office so that she can anticipate, you know, how much is a science adoption going to cost us? How much is a social studies? So we can plan ahead and know every year it's probably going to be $400,000 for new curriculum. What's that going to look like? So we're never catching the district off guard with what the needs are, and our teachers are getting the materials and supplies they need.
Well, I mean, I think what's nice about this structure too is you talked about the anticipation, right? Now, we don't have, I can't remember, was it 20 years of, was it science or social studies?
22 with social studies.
So the social studies people, know now every 6 years that that's coming and art is already planning it, so.
And that's a review. It doesn't mean they have to adopt something. If what they have is working and they're not ready for that adoption, then at least we've reviewed it.
In fact, I don't know, not to put you on the spot, but how many courses do you have? You have 3 from our high school science, but
We have 17.
yeah. So, we're not adopting to adopt, we adopt what we need to adopt.
Would it be fair to assume that that's probably a good idea and a best practice for a high-performing district to review curriculum on a regular basis?
I would think so, and I would also think it would be time right now to give curriculum and instruction department a big cheer. Nice try. And I'm including department chairs in that work and the teachers who have come together to help get this launched. These are big items to get moving.
It does seem like a lot of work, and again, I'm just wondering why we weren't doing this before, but great job.
Okay, any other questions or? Okay, all right, thank you guys so much.
Really?
Okay, Washington Middle School swimming pool update. Superintendent, that's all, Mike, if you wanna come forward.
Yeah, come on up, Mike. And, what we wanted to do, because we're doing more of the entire school board is keep you abreast of issues. This year, you've identified one of our 3 goals, priority goals, is doing a district-wide facilities assessment and plan, in terms that we really know comprehensively what we have in store and how we might proceed with this. However, from not having a plan, things are popping up on us, and this is one of them. And we just want you to be aware of it because there's a potential that we'd have to shut down this pool. And so I didn't want to, right now, it's kind of in the cycle. It's going to be part of that plan, and we'll address it in terms of how we prioritize this, what our recommendations might be. We just wanted you to know the condition of this because it's at that point in time where this could turn south on us really quick. And so it's an information piece. Mike has shared some pictures of it. I've shared those out with you, and these are things that we'll do that just try to keep the board with us on these big issues. One will be looking at the whole plan, but if there's issues that are coming up because we haven't anticipated them, I need to make sure that Mike and I are working to get you up to speed on these. And this just happens to be one of them. You can obviously understand that there's some parallel between, you've got 3 areas that have pools, or 4, 2 middle schools, the high school and Riverview. So anyways, that's just there. Mike, anything you want to share with you on that? And
Well,
any questions anybody might have?
it kind of came up on my radar with the problems that we had over at Stangl School with the water main breaking twice within about a month and a half. So then we just replaced the first section of water main, and that piping was there was a section that was just terribly corroded. And it was going to happen again if we wouldn't have replaced that portion of water main. So then going underneath the pool at Washington and seeing how corroded all of that was, that just makes me nervous. I have never seen it before, but I've heard stories of this stuff just failing. And when a water main goes, if you would have seen the parking lot over at Stangl, after the city shut the water off and all, the whole parking lot was full of sand and gravel and rocks like that. There's so much pressure in there. So this has to be addressed moving forward. So
When will we make a decision about whether or not that we have to close the pool for the year or fix it?
Right now, we believe we can run it again through this year unless something happens where all of a sudden we have one of the pipes go. And then it brings the problem immediate. Okay, otherwise we'll try to work this in a plan so you're making decisions when you know the whole, so that you have a better understanding about the component parts in terms of.
finishing this facility study is going to give us a lot of information and going to help us come up with decisions with all of the information together. So And we should be through all of the schools. Lincoln will be the last school we'll go through, and that will be about a week or two before Christmas. We'll have all of that together, so.
So when are we gonna see the results of that, Mike? Is that this year, you think?
February.
February?
It's in February, yep. They're on track. They're surprised at how quickly they're moving along with this study.
How is it working with them so far, Mike?
How is it?
How is it working with them? You know,
Oh, real well. They're appreciative of our custodians, how much knowledge those guys have. So when they put about 2 days aside for a study, they're getting it, they don't have to come back the second day. They can do all of their work back in Milwaukee and Green Bay and get their reports together. So they're moving along quickly on this.
Do you have a ballpark idea of the cost to fix Washington?
Oh, I think it's,
390?
we had some estimates in there from 400,000.
That's the low end. I
Yeah.
had Carico Pools in to take a look at everything, and that's the very low end.
But we are using a pool now.
It doesn't have water in it.
Okay.
Yeah, but
There's only a short period of time that we actually have programming in that pool, if I understand it correctly, with the information that's coming forward here for me, correct, Mike?
from January through March is when
So,
the
right.
program will go.
One of the documents I read on this, lifeguards,
Yeah,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
having a hard time finding lifeguards. Mike
so
can
it's not
answer
like the
that.
old days when the FIAD teacher was able to be the lifeguard when the kids were in there?
Mike, you want?
Well, here's what I've been told is that, not too long ago in Manitowoc, we had an incident
Yeah, we did.
in one of our pools where we had, I don't know, 31 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 middle school students in the water and one person in there trying to instruct and manage all that. And there was one child that went under. To my knowledge, it turned out well. Student, everything survived and everything. But since that day, the Manitowoc School District has insisted on having 2 certified lifeguards, usually the instructor and somebody else, so 4 eyes on all those students in that pool, so we don't have a repeat incident such as that. So with that being said, we've been on the search for a lifeguard for 3 or 4 months now. We have found somebody who's starting at Wilson as a lifeguard on Monday the 30th for November and December, and then, like Mike said, over to Washington for the next couple months so we can have the swim program in both buildings. The person's been hired as a special education paraprofessional / lifeguard, so, for the district. That's how we made this work.
In my opinion, I just want to let everybody know I love water. I love growing up next to Lake Michigan. It's been amazing. I swam for Lincoln High School for 3 years. I wasn't very good, but I swam distance 500 yards. So I was kind of like hard nosed, just kept going. So with me saying this, I do believe we should start getting a plan together to decommission the middle school pools so that we can establish the high school being our paramount, most important place and getting our students trained so they can all swim in this community. But with the costs, we've been notified about this about over a year ago, about the costs that have been incurred from the middle schools that's going to have to be addressed with. And I would like to be proactive instead of reactive. And I would like to start thinking about decommissioning those pools and sending the students to Lincoln High School and putting our invested interest at Lincoln High School. I'll say it publicly and I'll be the bad guy, but I think that's the best plan moving forward. That's my opinion.
well, I'm sure that'll be talked about as
Oh, yeah.
possible option, as facilities, so.
I just think you're talking about that.
Anybody else have questions or?
I just want to clarify. So right now, the pools are functional. And they will be used for their
Right.
programming,
Dangerous.
barring something unforeseen fatal.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. But it's pretty precarious, isn't it, from what you suggest?
Oh, I know what I was.
Washington, yeah.
I know what I was gonna ask. You know, that sounds like a very large, FIAD class. Is there a ratio that is recommended for a lifeguard like you can only have so many students? Does any, I mean,
Yeah, I'm not aware of that type of situation.
okay,
Two lifeguards for 35.
Safety wise, when you have, let's say 25 to 30 middle schoolers in the pool, in the water, that's a lot of heads bopping up and down.
yeah, I just didn't know, I guess where I'm coming from is, it sounds like it was a policy that was changed. And if we, do we need to have two all the time, or if we fell below, had a smaller, I'm just wondering if that would help if we didn't have the amount, but still were providing safety to students if it was a smaller class.
Yeah, if we had, I'm assuming if we had a class, let's just go with under 20, it might be a little bit more manageable situation. However, typically, in my experiences as a building principal for many years, you're always trying to look for that magic number of a balanced class of 25. And some sections creep up, some sections come down because of the scheduling issues. So, but yeah, if we had much smaller classes, it'd be much more manageable relative to the safety aspect.
Sure.
Sure.
I had one more thing. Jessica from the County Health Department sent us a packet. I would say it's 20, 30 pages long of all the proposed changes for pool regulations starting this year. I asked her and she said, I can't tell you what the changes are. She said, we're gonna learn this together. But like for lifeguard certification, it was every 2 years. That I know is gonna go to every year now, which will probably decrease the availability of lifeguards. So there's a lot of changes coming that we don't even know what they are yet. So we'll have to dive into that also when we're thinking about these pools and.
Good work, yeah.
All right, any other questions?
If I may just add, also the high school has a lifeguarding course that produces certified students. And so you may also have a pool of, students that have a free hour or potentially could serve, and I know they do serve, at the high school. And they get summer jobs, at the aquatic center or other things. So that produces some certifications.
I believe actually the high school kids are used as lifeguards for some of the swim meets.
Yes.
So maybe if we scheduled those classes early in the year, we could produce kids that could help out in the middle schools.
We could even
Up to talk about painting.
We don't have a graduation requirement that people have to swim.
Hey, there you go, buddy.
I went to a college
That's a good
where,
idea.
you couldn't graduate unless you couldn't
We used
take 4 laps or something.
It wasn't a requirement to graduate, but you had to take swimming
It's
as
the ninth
a
grade
sophomore.
Okay.
It's in the ninth grade PE curriculum.
Okay.
But it's not a technical requirement,
But I'm
but it's in the
glad,
curriculum.
I'm glad, Matt, you brought up those feelings because when the board starts talking about doing that, that's gonna be a community issue.
We need some way to
Yeah.
incentivize people to get back in the pools. So they learn how to swim.
We live next to a big lake, so it's nice to know how to swim.
Okay, thanks, Mike, appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Keep us posted. And then, we put the CEP, on again. It was a request, by some board members, and just to give, a lot of questions, that stemmed from last time. So I'll just have Jim present on, he did present, I believe, put something in our packet.
I did. I put it out there. I don't know if you want to take a few minutes to see that.
In the
since-
board
Yeah,
packet.
so this came out late last week, put it on.
There's a statement.
We've been following up in terms of just trying to become more and more knowledgeable in terms of what's going on in the program. I just had the hard thing. So, in there, I've just provided some additional updates in terms of, some of the information that was being conveyed. There was an awful lot that was conveyed that associated issues with kids who would qualify for need, making reference sometimes to other terms, which I think we have to be careful of in terms of, when we talk about socioeconomic status and stuff like this. But really, the kids who are most taken care of are the kids who would qualify for free, and really close to that, the reduced. With that, those kids, you can identify who's getting cards.
Right.
That's just, so, some of the reference, in terms of what might happen, in terms of their knowing who's getting free, that just doesn't exist. But then there is also conversation about what happens with the paid, parents, who don't qualify. And we're not talking, in other areas, the extenuating circumstances, and that's when we try to put a safety net out there. And we shared that with you. But, for the most part, the parents that paid, what happens if they don't put money in the account? First of all, there is ongoing, always updates to parents to make sure that they're aware of how much money's into their account. And in my sense, in my interviews so far with our organization that handles this, they're very sensitive to the needs of kids going through that. And so there's been references, and I just, without specifics to follow up on, so when somebody says there's flip trays, and they're just dumping them, there's no canisters at the end of trays. Could something have happened? Yes, but, I just, I can't follow up on general statements like that. What I will do is ask principals to meet in their staff meetings in terms of how are things, what's the, do we have any sense that this is actually happening so that we look for evidence? But without somebody, really issuing a complaint where we could follow up on it, you're generalizing that then to, geez, that must be rampant. So I've not come across anything but reassurance that.
And this is coming from the contract
From the
food
contract,
service
right,
vendor.
Right, exactly. And I'm not saying, this is aside from the program. This would be something we would just be interested in, and what's happened because this has come up, we're looking into it. I would have to tell you that there's little oversight over the company. We depend on them almost everything, including budgeting and managing that. So my sense is I would expect that we know as close as we can, as much as they know, because we're contracting, we're hiring people out, for that. But this is one of those other areas that we're just getting into and opening up, because we just relied on people and kind of consider it a partnership and tell us what to do, and we do that. That's not to say they aren't working hard and doing a good job.
What did we find out about waste, Jim?
Waste is mostly associated with people who qualify for free because they have to take, there's 5 items that they're eligible for. They have to take 3. If they don't want it, they have to take 3. We're encouraging them to take it because then we can count it. And if they don't like it, they can throw it away. It's just the way it is. Now, there has been, for example, the food service people have done some things to really look at waste and how to cut it. So for example, they recognize that apples, whole fruit was being thrown away more. And so they found out by cutting up and just having slices of apple, there's less waste. So they've been, over the years, been doing this, okay? So it's not just all of a sudden, there has been a lot to try to eliminate that. But when you're providing stuff for, there's 3 items that you have to take. One is that's absolutely required is fruit, those items, now they used to, for example, they used to have, I understand, a container for the apples because they recognized that we were taking animals and giving it, to animals. And so now they were deliberately getting apples so they could feed the animals. Good students, wanting to help. And so, the contractor, Caldwell's, is, attempted to really recognize, what's going on, and trying to make sure that the intended purpose is being met. So I felt like they've gone all the way, other than now starting to inquire in terms of our building principals, because there's information. The other thing that surfaced was that there's teachers who are paying $100 a month. I mean, I've always heard of teachers providing, are they providing for the kids who are getting free meals and they're just providing a little bit extra? I don't know how to follow up on anything of that nature, other than if things starts getting shared with the principal and we recognize there's a concern. The other thing, because this is surface, we put the safety net in there, even though there was a safety net somewhat. I mean, because when Micah heard about this, he said, well, I already have money set aside, for this. And so there's always been a need to look for the extenuating circumstances and somebody falling between, but we're just going to tighten up that much more. And then when you think of elementary to middle school, I mean, SFA anticipates there's needs, and we need to understand what those needs are so that we know how to program. And so that's why you have these solutions teams. So you have a parent and family involvement, you have a community engagement. Some of that, you have an intervention team that says, some kids are falling between the cracks. Who are they? So they deliberately are looking for, it's not a solve all, because there's a human element to all of this.
So one of the things that I asked Jim to do was, there were a couple direct questions, and it's in here, but I'm just going to read them out loud. So the question was, how many eligible families have successfully applied for free and reduced? 2,233 for free and 364 for reduced.
And
Okay.
that's 55% of who's eligible, according to what I was told tonight. So 55% of the kids eligible for free or reduced are getting it.
So our
Of
enrollment,
the total enrollment.
yeah, 48, what are we at right now for total enrollment?
It's 57%.
Yeah, no, what's total enrollment?
That's not who's eligible, or who, is that of the total
Well,
enrollment?
let's Angela answer.
Of the total enrollment, 4,686 students, 2,236 students qualified for free meals, and 363 students for reduced, so.
And how many of those kids are getting free lunch? Of the kids who qualify, how many get it, have filled out the forms and are being served?
Those are qualified, that she made a
Yeah.
reference, that's direct certification, meaning that information is already available to us. And then there's those who aren't qualifying for another program that we encourage to fill out the applications.
Right, and that's who we need to identify. The kids that qualify but aren't taking advantage of it.
Well, again, there could be a number of reasons. You could have high school kids saying, I don't want lunch, I'm eligible, but I'm not taking it, and I want to go off campus, because I think we have open campus, correct?
Right.
Right, so, in breakfast program, we also have the breakfast program. We took it out of the classroom. And so parents would have to get their kids earlier, and there's a drop. One would assume that it's not that important, or for whatever reasons, to bring those kids there to be able to provide them a meal.
Sorry to interrupt it, so go ahead.
Oh, no, that's fine. So, so Angela, anything else you want to add to that? So just that we have the 2,233 free and 364 reduced, all of those. What percentage are taking advantage of the program that we have?
That's
Yeah, percentage exactly that's taking advantage daily, we don't have that right at hand, but that's, when they come up to the point of sale, they're gonna be charged based on their qualification for that, so. So it amounts to 55% of the student population.
Can come up with their card and access the meal.
Yes.
Is that close to 100% of eligible participants? Because that's what it sounds like to me.
I mean, on any, like, you have high school students, for example, they might, not wanna have a lunch on a certain day, they might change or decide to bring their own lunch, so it's hard to know how many exactly take advantage. I mean, of that, I can look at let me look.
But if we have, Angela, if we have 55% that on their card, they can go up and get something
Yes.
if they choose to.
Correct, yes.
Okay, and we have 56%, 57% that are eligible.
But we don't know who's
That's, the number that we gave you is the ones that went through the steps to be identified as being either, free or reduced. So
And that's at 55%.
correct, so there's a certain percentage that come through direct certification, so that's about 44.5% is the April 1 count last year.
Okay.
So then the gap between that and the 55 is families that do fill out the forms.
Okay.
I did work with food service and ask them if there's a way for us to generate a list when we have it ready. We have to just get the addresses, take off the ones that filled out the application and were denied, and send a paper form to see if there are more that, if they don't feel comfortable or print it off or whatever to close that gap, mail it in a self-address so they can, it's just pop it in the mail, give us the information and offer help, so.
I just also sent you another link, that food service people provided us in terms of based on October usage, and the start of the year is a little bit different because they've got accounts loaded up and, and so as it starts balancing out, you get a better idea in terms of what that might be. But they shared with me that for October, the estimate was 29,806 meals were served. Of that, 19,076 were free, 2,683 reduced, and 8,047 paid, which represents 64%, 9%, and 27%. And then they also identified of the free people who qualify for free are also buying a la carte of $6,000. And for reduced, they're buying $3,488. And for paid, they're paying another $4,882. Now, that could mean anything. It could be in addition to, it could be in place. I don't want to eat that. I don't want to, they find money. So it's really hard to really assess and really know in depth. Yes.
I'm going to get him first because
Go ahead.
and then you're next, Carrie.
Okay.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think as far as we can see, we have to assume all of those that are qualified are these exact numbers that are getting it, and they have access to the free same lunch everybody else does. What we're concerned about is what Biff said, is that little extra that may fall through the cracks. So my question being is, why are we even discussing this at this point in time? Because Superintendent File has already given the authority to the principals at the schools to make sure that nobody falls through the cracks. Now, unless somebody on this board has received a specific complaint from a parent that can't afford the meal, or a child, or anything specifically related to a child that has not eaten, that we definitely need to address that immediately. But I don't think anybody has received one specific instance where we did not feed a child. So that's my whole question, is that I do know that there was an issue, but he kind of solved the issue. So now I wonder where all the questions come.
I'm just really bewildered by this whole thing. I mean, why are we doing all this? We must have the most Rube Goldberg form of doing lunch. I mean, if we did clap, we'd be free of all the paperwork. Everybody would get fed, and the program is already paid for, and it's simply a benefit that's coming back to taxpayers in this community. And yet we have principals involved, and we have tons of paperwork involved, and parents we're trying to keep track of, and people that fall between the cracks, etc. Doesn't CLEP just take care of all of it? Did we ever do this last year?
So during the pandemic, we still had to collect free and reduced meal applications, and then last year it was a separate form when we were under CEP in order to waive fees, as an example. It's also important, beyond just qualifying students for meals, it's important for the district because it's tied to title funding.
Okay.
So they take those percentages, and so it's really important for us to get that to be as tight and accurate as it can. So making sure that the forms are available is something we should do regardless of what we offer now in the future. We always have to collect that information.
All right, but CEP doesn't.
Incredibly important.
Okay, go ahead. Never mind.
Gary, the people that I've talked to my support is that, I'm a big parental rights person. So I believe that the parents have the rights to make the decisions for their children. But you can't have a parental rights discussion without parental responsibilities. So obviously, with rights come responsibilities. And the math, I'm going to say it's around 50% of the families that don't qualify that are paying for their children's lunches. They would like to pay for their children's lunches because that's their responsibility. And they take that as their responsibility as a parent, not just their rights to be able to do what they want with their children. If they would like to enroll them into summer school or not, that's a parental right, but it also comes with their responsibilities. And they want those responsibilities because they chose to become parents. So I think it's around 50%, give or take a few percentage, that the parents haven't been complaining. Yes, they've been complaining about inflation and the cost of living and the elevated property values in the county, but they haven't been. One thing I want to also say is we're a community with the remnant of a shipbuilder. And builders are producers. We're producers. We want to work. We've always worked. We're foundry workers. We're laborers. We're electricians. We're plumbers. We're producers. And we're very confident in our ability to produce for our families and provide for our families. And these people want to provide for their family. Now, they don't like the cost going up. Nobody likes the cost going up. But I have not been getting complaints about parents that say, hey, I want free food for my kids, and I don't want to spend my money on food. I want to spend it on my car payment or other things. They want to provide for their children because they take responsibility for their children.
Okay, a couple other questions that came up. The information referenced in the statement being circulated, brown bag lunches, pulling food trays from poor students, not feeding poor students, that from Chartwell's staff said that that is not happening. And did that actually come from local Chartwell staff? And the answer is yes.
So where did that come from then?
Well, and that's, one of the questions Biff had was, why is there this discrepancy between what people are reporting in school, right, and what Chartwell says?
It came from parents.
I've
I've got a picture of a bulletin board at one of the grade schools where all the kids have picked out what they want for lunch, and every day the yellow clothespin with this strange colored card is the kid who gets a sandwich because he doesn't have free lunch. So everybody in that room knows he's the kid who can't afford it.
Where's this at?
At one of our grade schools.
Maybe we need to bring that forward.
No, that is if the account is low. So like if I, as a parent, I don't have money in my child's food service account, they would get.
This is the slip that they give when they walk through the line, and instead of getting a slice of pizza, he gets the sandwich.
Right, that's somebody that's not free and reduced, that's somebody that
And
has
it's out there,
financial
and it's out there.
needs.
I don't know if it's free or reduced or not, because these are the kids that they don't get the regular lunch. So they get the yellow pin when everyone else has the blue one on the bulletin board.
But Angela's telling you that is
And that's
what that
okay.
is.
That's okay to draw that kid out there.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything's okay with that. I think what we're doing is, what came was the free and reduce was the issue. This issue is surfacing, and I is interested in you in terms of following up on any of this.
Well, and that's my concern with Chartwell's, because unlike you, I've gotten complaints from parents.
Sure.
And I've heard the complaints. We heard it last week with the testimonial from a high school girl that was here.
Yep.
Okay?
We can
And
lump that if you'd like.
okay, and staff at the high schools who have called and said, hey, they took trays away from kids in the cafeteria. Okay? Who's taking it away? If it's not the Chartwell staff, who's doing that? Okay? So
I would be the first
when I read what Jim had in here about Chartwell's and that idea, or the company, or whoever you want to say, or is it us? That concerned me that it's not happening. When we're getting all these complaints that it's happening.
Okay, so now that's not with the free and reduced, but that's with personal responsibility of parents. Now, I'll be the first one to admit I wanted the Lunchable when I was a kid, and I freaking wanted a snack pack, but I didn't have enough money, so I got brats in a freaking paper bag.
These were not free and
these were not.
These were not
parents'
kids. These were kids who needed the lunch. These were not kids that could pay for it.
That's not.
Well, okay, according to them, it doesn't happen, but we're getting reports on that.
And I'm more than willing to
Right,
follow up on
but
anything
the-
that comes to our attention,
If you
including.
have, but if you have the free and reduced lunch on your card when it's swiped,
You get a hot lunch.
you're gonna get a hot lunch.
Yeah, I know, if you're signed up and you're ready to go.
Right. It happens to the kids, like Angela said, if it was her son or daughter, she forgot to put the money into her account, they're not gonna not feed her, but they're gonna give her a lunch. It just wouldn't be the,
And if you're not signed up for free and reduced, you don't get a lunch either. If you're not signed up, you don't have the card to show.
As far as the,
If they haven't turned in the application, if they have.
And that's why Mr. File came to the solution that we give the local government, our local principals, the authority to make discretionary calls. We're solving the issue on a local level. We're not letting the federal mandate our requirements. We're letting our local principals make discretionary calls if they need food. The solution is solved. Matt, what you said, it's done. But we're gonna talk and drag this out some more because of other reasons.
I do want to say one thing that what Biff said, we need to get rid of the whole yellow card. Like, I don't accept that. I don't think so.
I didn't think you would.
The whole yellow card thing or just differentiating, I thought we kind of got past that. I didn't know that was happening. If we do have incidents, we need to pass that forward and let Jim handle that. And those children that do fall through the cracks, our whole intention, or at least my whole intention, was to get them fed in the same manner as everybody else, the same tray with the same everything else. If that's the cost we have to incur, then that's the cost we have to incur. I don't care how we do it. But what I'm saying is, the whole yellow card thing and the whole sunflower butter sandwich, we gotta get rid of that. Like, just, it shouldn't even be around.
We had a federal program that does that.
Can I just cut to the chase, and then we can discuss this, and maybe it'll get everything over. But I'd like to make a motion, because Jim stated in his either yesterday or today's thing about Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, there are people down there that are willing to work with us to reinstate the lunch program.
Yeah, so I provided a couple options in terms of, because this is really taken away from academics.
Exactly.
motion, I mean, but this is not an
actionable item.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah, it's really not, it's.
So what committee does this go to? Where does it go? This is a committee of the whole, so we should be able to do an action, since that's how we're doing things now,
So
correct?
Your motion would be to pull the authority from the
The
superintendent.
motion is the board would pass this and go back to 2 years ago when you guys said, yeah, let's do the program.
I would just say, Jim, what do you plan on doing? Because
So what committee does this go to say, let's reconsider this? The DPI is telling us they would reconsider this. Then where do we go? Because if it's not committee of the whole, where is that
we would
decision
address that
happening?
when we go through these policies. Right now, there's a policy that deals with the federal funding that we would change
Well, but
and
what
make that our responsibility.
What I would say to that, though, is that the end of this memo, Jim is stating that he's looking for where do we go from here. So it doesn't have to be an actionable item if the will of the board is recommending.
So let's vote
to him
and find
do
out
that.
the will of the board. Let's vote to see,
can do
we
that.
could go to the DPI and work with them to get the program reinstated until conditions are met that kids have applied, that our kids that can't afford or free and reduced, they're getting fed. When that happens, we can go back to this way of doing it. But right now, it's a mess. It's divided this community. You tell me which committee, or you tell me how to do the resolution, I will do it. But we were told this is the way we're going to function. We're going to function as a committee of the whole. There's no committees anymore. So I want to make a motion to work with the DPI to reinstate the Community Eligible Program, CED, for the Manitowoc Public School District under these 3 conditions. We will keep it under the old program until 99% of our kids that get free or reduced are signed up. So we know kids are getting fed. And I go 99 because there's always kids moving in and out of the community. We're not going to get 100%. 99 are the kids that are going to be here. 99% of kids that are eligible are getting it. Then the district has to look at those kids that pay in their accounts. We were told a couple weeks ago that if we have an account and we pay, you go to some website, you check how much money is in there, and if you don't have money in there, they're not letting kids eat. They don't get the same lunch if their account is at 0. And they have to go check. Well, all of us know in our busy lives, sometimes we forget to check things. So maybe there should be a system other than going to a website where maybe they get a phone call like you used to get if you were late for class or skipped class at the high school, you got an automated phone call. Or maybe somebody calls and goes, hey, the last 3 days you haven't had any money, we're gonna have to bill you. Let's come up with a system for that, to treat that. And the last thing is to get rid of anything that demonstrates that you are a kid who needs a free lunch, i.e. the yellow clips in the school.
I'll go with that.
Okay? And I'm saying that after those conditions are met, we can go back to this, there's no free lunch thing. That's a whole different argument and a different way of doing things. But right now, we have to go back to feeding kids in Manitowoc. And you may not get those stories, but I get those stories.
Sure.
And I get those letters, and I get those emails. And we gotta go back to doing that.
Without parental responsibilities, you don't have parental rights. And that's what you're advocating for.
What I'm advocating for is a kid eats, Matt.
Yeah.
Now, everybody
Everybody is eating that wants to eat.
No, they're not. That's the
Can you
problem.
please give me one example that a person isn't, right now, and we will make sure that they get fed. That's the problem. I've not heard, you've heard people complaining that this is going on, but I've never heard.
So
This is a
people
One
are just
incident.
making these up?
No.
Principals are making it up?
I'm just saying
Parents
that we
are
haven't
making it up?
received one specific complaint where a child hasn't been fed. We are feeding everybody. You're getting a different, and I agree on some, like, I agree with you on some of these things, Biff. But what I'm saying is, we need to have an example of somebody not getting fed, and not once did I hear of a child not eating in Manitowoc.
So what is the principle that we're dying for here? You know, the principle that, you know, there can't be food for kids if the parents don't pay for it. I don't quite understand
There is no
why
principle.
you're so adamant about that.
No,
you're
I
just
think,
saying
I
that.
think
Nobody's
one-
ever
I
said
think
that.
one thing to remember is, I mean, again, I think I hear a lot of confusion in the language. Number one is that if you were on the free and reduced program, which Angela said 55% of our kids are getting fed. If you fall in those cracks, we've asked our principals to come forward to provide those individuals to food service. They won't get in the program, but we will provide those meals for them. The third thing is, if you are a parent that has the financial means, you come to the line and you can't get a bubbler or a piece of pizza or the stuff on the a la carte menu, you get a meal. So everyone is being fed that comes. So
But why-
that's what I don't understand. If this is about feeding people, where
Seems to me it's a pretty
Where-
inefficient way to do it.
where are we not feeding people? That's what I want to know. Students, where? Tony?
For me, I look at this as more of an economic issue when I'm looking at, you know, the practicality of what opting out is going to cost us in the long run. And I'll preface that by saying I absolutely agree with Jim on principle. You know, I think
Which principle?
the principle that we shouldn't take more than we need. And really where the issue lies, from what I can see, is just the fundamental inefficiency in how the federal tax dollars are allocated and our lack of control over that. And in my opinion, just in talking to staff that I've reached out to and I've asked for their candid opinion on this issue, you know, there are potentially some unintended consequences that we may not have seen when we opted out, right? So again, anecdotally, but I'm taking these people for their word, you know, some staff are incurring additional costs out of pocket, you know, to provide snacks and stuff for kids. You know, again, I'm just telling you that. And when I'm looking at it as an economic issue, to me is if indeed this is a cost neutral choice, or if it's even slightly going to cost us more, which again, we're trying to wrap our head around the facts, to me, it's not worth the brain damage to opt out if it's going to create this huge distraction and if it's going to drive up costs for our staff or other people unnecessarily. I look at it solely through that lens. And again, I agree with you on principle, Jim, because I think you're absolutely right. But the issue is the fundamental flaw in how the tax dollars are routed and how we have very little control over federal dollars at a local level. And that's where and I keep going back and forth on this because, the one thing we all have in common is I think we all want to help the kids that need it. It's just how do we solve this issue responsibly and practically? And then that's where I'm struggling. And just the business guy in me looks at it like, well, why would we make it harder for us than we need to, even if we're right on principle, right? And not only that, but when you factor in just all the changes with SFA, I mean, that's already a challenge for the staff. I think that this could be another thing that, again, just unintended consequence, right? It's just creating more brain damage than we want to deal with right now.
Yeah.
I agree that it's just a distraction from what we really want to do here is educate children. This has been a huge distraction. So in your words, basically saying, let's move on with it.
I would almost, honestly, I would urge the board, if it's easy and we can just kick the can on this thing, I would say let's just kick the can. Like, we can't solve this problem other than, talk to your federal representatives on how they're distributing tax dollars and give us a little bit more control and say locally. Because if we had that, then, Jim's idea makes a ton of sense, right? We can redistribute funds where we have a need instead of overfunding an area that we don't have. I mean, how stupid is that it could potentially cost us more?
They can make a decision to get free, we can't.
Right.
Well, we have a motion too.
So,
Yeah, I mean,
And we don't have an actionable item.
This, when I put this on, it was the anticipation that there could be interest in this, and it would go to the next board meeting, that with the concurrence, to do this. And I could start, telling, DPI, if that's where you wanted to, to go, to the extent that, because I just talked to her today, and they want to help in any way they can, so I just wanted you to be aware of what, I mean, obviously next year, but even this year, if we felt that was the right thing to do. I only know that I'm spending a ton of time on this, and people are being distracted because of all the commotion that's being made publicly, and a lot of it's false information, and that's upsetting. It doesn't mean that there aren't issues that we need to follow up on. This has surfaced those. I couldn't agree with you more. I don't know who really wants anybody somehow flagged, in terms of, that. And then there are extenuating circumstances. Let's just say some maybe parents are going through a divorce and that's not really good, and we see that, and that's why we try to create the safety net umbrella. So we really attempted to.
Angela, one of the questions I had about what Biff brought up is if we can't opt into it up to the 99% and then go back. It's all or nothing, right?
Correct. They're, and they said while we missed the deadlines and everything for this year, that they don't want to be the reason that students are not eating at this point. And Carrie Isaacson said, please keep me posted. She said there'd be a substantial amount of hoops that they would have to jump through and look into.
And that's not a guarantee.
And it's not a guarantee.
So we don't want to speak for her, but there's an interest in helping us if we want to go that way.
So, and because the state of Wisconsin isn't getting a waiver for the new changes on qualifications for CEP, but they're willing to go to bat for us. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
And also, currently, when we started the year, it was 40%, that you could qualify for this program for district-wide. They are lowering it to 25%, and it's already in effect now, even though it's for next year. I mean, somebody could really say, geez, we really need it right now, we just missed it. I don't know, DPI might work to help them. But essentially what I see is the federal government's just trying to make free meals part of the school program. And that cost has doubled in the last 10 years, so there is a cost.
Well, I see this at this point as advisory, and what I hear is that, some of us would want Jim to explore that option. And I think that, Jim made the decision that he did, and with the new information he has, I think that you should explore the option that you think is knowing how the board feels about it. Financially, and that you make the decision about whether or not we should go back into CEP. If they'll allow it.
Thank you. As I have stated, to me, this is a policy decision. And it's a policy decision of considerable weight, which I believe should be made by the board. But to me, it's not a philosophical thing. It's a cost versus benefits thing. And there are tangible costs, and there are tangible benefits, and there are intangible costs, and there are intangible benefits. And I absolutely have very little clarity on what the real costs to us are. That number moves from time to time. It seems every 2 weeks when we revisit this, those numbers are somewhat different. Sometimes they're very small, sometimes they're big. But so, like, for example, when they're small, we're talking about 1 penny out of every $10 the district spends. Now, that's a cost. When I look at the benefits, I can understand how to weigh those two things. If it shifts dramatically another way, well, you need to weigh all these parts. But I do think part of the struggle that the district and the board are experiencing, these struggles, is related to the fact that there isn't clarity on the information and the numbers, so that we know what it is we're considering when we either vote, which would be my preference, or make a recommendation. Thank you.
And you know, I would be in support of Jim exploring the option of CEP if it is financially beneficial to us. If we find out that the kids that are in the cracks is costing $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, you know, then that doesn't make sense. But again, yeah, we started at 300, then we went to 100,000, you know, now we're at, you know, net neutral, but it doesn't count the kids that are, or it doesn't count, you know, teachers providing things, and we can't take out of the food service that money. It has to come from the general fund of anybody that we hear about. So I would be in support of it if it makes financial sense, and that we believe that kids, I mean, right now, I think we have created a program that works because of the free and reduced, and that's there, and parents can be responsible for that. But if you find that financially it's cost effective for us to do that, and our as Carrie said, the program that we have now is too convoluted to keep going, then I would support going to CEP.
I would have a question. Could you please extrapolate the revenues from parents that pay for their food and add inflation to the cost of the food in your factor of financial balance sheet? Yeah, you're gonna have to work.
If it's purely to just get the will of the board, I understand it's not an actionable item, but it has a motion on the table. Would you entertain his motion only if it's just to get the will of the board?
If you can.
I need to know how we make motions on this board. How do we do it without committee?
It's gotta be an actionable item, right, on the agenda.
Is this not on the agenda tonight?
It's not on the agenda.
Thinking about it.
It's not actionable though.
Information.
So committee of the whole, we even though we talk about it in committee of the whole.
We've never had it, yeah.
If it's an actionable item on the agenda, we can vote on it.
I mean, that's my understanding of the agenda.
As
All
committee,
we
can
ask,
recommend-
Robert, we're trying to follow Robert's rules. What do you say, Abe?
Well, it's very clearly enumerated on the agenda which things are information, which are information discussion, which are information discussion possible action. You know, and I've seen it in the past. Near the end of my time on the library board, I started to move away from that to allow more flexibility for action if they wanted it. But the way it is framed here, the public would not anticipate action this evening. Now, so I suppose you could do a recommendation vote.
That's what Stacy's doing right now.
Right, so I'm specifying my recommendation to Jim that if you find this to be, and you decide to go down that road, I would support you, you know, doing that.
One at a time, then I guess we're gonna go
You
through.
can just forget about it.
We'll go down the line and I'll address my support as well. I cite policy 6110, It's in your purview, and if you decide to go back to CEP, I'll support that. If you decide to stand your ground and stay what we're doing, I'll support that as well.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are, again, it's an economic decision. So we got to look at the economics, and if it's a maybe or a cost neutral, I think we kick the can on this thing. It's just not worth the time and energy right now.
Well, it seems like a trick rabbit here, but I just don't know why we refuse to confront the issue. It's all over town.
We are right now.
It's just all over town.
We are right now. What is your support? Is it for CEP or, okay?
Most of the mail I get, all of the mail that I get is in favor of it. And you know, I mean, I guess I come from a land where the conservatives should be Democrats.
Would you like Jim, as a recommendation, would you like Jim to pursue CEP or
Yeah,
stay
sure,
where
I
we are?
would. I'd like that very much because it makes a lot of sense. It simplifies things a lot. It becomes more efficient. There's less chance that, kids are out. And the other thing is that we're the only school system in the state of Wisconsin that opted out of this program.
This year.
So I don't know,
I'm unapologetically saying that I am in support of Mr. Files' decision, and I believe that you can only have parental rights if you have parental responsibilities as a parent.
Well, I said I would love for us to have a fuller understanding of it, and I would believe it would be best if it was a board vote at that point.
Yeah.
You know where I stand. I just feel it should be a board vote.
Yeah.
It should be decided by this board whether or not we feed kids efficiently in this district. And right now, we're not doing that. We're not feeding every kid that needs it. Or we set them aside and give them a yellow clip, or we say this, or we take a tray away. So put it off. I'm in favor of feeding the kids and getting back on this program.
Manipulation of what you're saying. Sorry, I didn't know. Sorry, Stacy.
We do disagree on a lot of stuff, Matt. But at
Okay.
least we disagree, and I've respected when you've talked. But
You're manipulating.
Okay,
the
let's
statement.
move away from this. So we've had this discussion.
The other thing,
Jim?
Madam President, I would like a clear statement on committee of the whole, bringing things up. If I had known that we had to officially done it, I would have done this in my letter to you on the other issues that I would like to officially discuss this as a change. But we don't know that. That's never been explained. We went away from committees and all of a sudden, we don't know what we do.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but couldn't someone just reach out to you a few days before and just say, could you make this actionable in the future? How to avoid this?
Yes.
As long as it's posted, I mean, you've got the experience, right?
It would have been nice to know that's how we do it, Tony.
Yeah.
We're off agenda right now.
So, Jim, where we leave it, if you've heard from the board, if you want to do, the CP, let us know in the interim.
Right now, I feel very strong in terms of my initial recommendation. As I mentioned in my rationale there, I would have also been open for what I know now. I mean, the question was asked me, if, based on what you know now, I would have put and asked for, even though I had authority, I'd ask for your support by a vote. Just because of the politics involved in it, because we're making an issue. We're manufacturing an issue in some ways, and this is getting blown out of proportion in terms of where we could have dealt with, need and addressed it. So I was trying to be fiscally responsible, and I recognize people might not think of federal tax as a tax locally, but it is. I would feel complicit if I hadn't done that, but I would have, knowing what I know now, suggested you vote on this because of the way it's with the brush fire. I mean, right now, we're off agenda.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I feel very strongly because, it's up to, I think, $30 billion now. It's doubled in 10 years for this cost. And then my concern, this is some of the things, when, it's not when, it's not if, it's when that cost starts coming back to us. Okay, because the federal government doesn't, they're borrowing a quarter of their budget right now to pay, to balance the budget. Every year they borrow. And right now they're paying 10% of the budget is paying finance. And so, I mean, we know in other areas, unfunded mandates, right?
So what we could do is if you wanted it, if you want the board to
I
make
would
a.
put it as an action item on the next meeting.
Okay.
And I will already start, because that will be my recommendation, because I need to get back to education, but I do feel you need to know what you're voting, that what's gonna happen, which I'm thinking will be minimal from a taxpayer point of view.
Why can't we just make a motion to give a recommendation right now? I understand actionable, not actionable, but I thought I was a board member.
Parliamentary stuff in the way, I guess.
It's rules.
I don't really know who this Robert guy is, nor do I care.
We have to post it to the
Nor
public.
do I care.
If it's not posted to the public for 24 hours, then we
Huh?
can't. Right, Chris?
There is so much.
It's gotta be posted for 24 hours, right?
Yes.
Yes.
To comply with open meetings law, the public needs to be able to anticipate that action.
Well, that's fine.
You may. So your motion for the next meeting is to just have us vote on how things are now. That's what you're saying? That's what you just said.
Let me say it again.
Okay,
What I'm recommending, is to support going back to CEP. Okay, but the board to vote on that because there could be fault. I mean, the taxpayers could be concerned, in terms of you're not being good stewards of my money, even if it's federal. Those are some of the things that I considered, so as I said, in my thing, if I could do it all over again, I would not only ask you to vote on it, I might even suggest you want to have a public forum, in terms of.
I don't think it's necessary.
See, and I'd rather.
Well, and I don't see that now, right now, I think it's.
And I would say if your recommendation is to explore the CEP option, then I rather give you I told you that I would be.
Because I have authority, that's what you're saying.
Correct. You have the authority now to opt into it, and if you have our, if that's your recommendation, and I said, if you believe that that's what you know now and all the information that comes, and then you make the call.
Okay.
I don't want to wait another 2 weeks.
Yep, I can tell you
and
that I
have-
will proceed with that.
Good.
So you'll proceed with,
With reinstating it to the extent if we're allowed to, otherwise it will be next year.
Okay, make that known. I mean, as far as public, that's what we're gonna do.
Okay, well, I'll live with that.
We can contact DPI and work with them.
Yeah, and I mean, they were sounding, I just can't say that's an absolute until they sign off on us. But Angela had feedback, I confirmed that today, just today. And again, I put those options down there because this again came on, to be put on the board. I've had some follow-up with some board members. And I'm recognizing we need to get back focused on education.
That's what we need to do.
This is a hidden cost that's significant because and again, I'm only concerned because of the false information that was getting out there. We have all been, with the team that we formed, receptive if there's issues to follow up on. But having stuff up here in the paper that's leading to false. Yep.
so would you, prior to our next meeting, once you've talked to DPI
Tell
and
you
got
guys
the
that it
ball
works.
rolling, and let us know?
Yeah, we'll update you.
Okay.
I think it's great and noted that it is a distraction. If you paid attention to the first portion of this meeting, it's just amazing.
Why?
Everything with the curriculum transparency,
Oh, yeah.
Jamie and his team and everything that we're doing.
Oh, yeah.
We're doing so much more work than I've ever seen done on this board, and I think it's fantastic.
So thank you
let's-
all for the conversation.
We're not.
Let's step it through.
People are.
We're gonna go to our budget, our adopted budget. And typically our treasurer makes a motion in the second, or a motion of the budget that's been recommended to us. Tony, I know you have the verbiage there, if you choose to make that motion.
Sure.
Do we want to combine I think we have them as two separate agenda items, so I would recommend that I think we have to take a vote technically to combine the items. and then we can make the motion. Okay, so I would look for a
First and a second to combine the adoption of the budget and the tax levy into one motion.
I'll make a motion that we combine.
Second, Chris?
Please.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. All right, and go ahead with the motion.
I move to approve the 2023-24 Manitowoc Public School District budget as presented at the budget hearing on October 10th, 2023, with final budget adjustments in accordance with section 65.90 of the Wisconsin statutes, which includes general fund revenues of $75,894,932 and general fund expenditures of $76,162,008, total expenditures of all funds of $95,880,089, and total revenues of $994,038,829, with a tax levy of $25,247,086.
There was a
Good
slight
motion.
typo on the total revenues of $94,038,829. I caught it and I think the word printed just in between.
Oh,
So an extra 9, my
Do I
error.
have to read that all over again, or?
no, just modify the, what is the number?
So the grand total expenditures, all funds, is $95,880,089 and total revenues of $94,038,829 with a tax levy of $25,247,086.
That's right, that's what's in here.
That's what.
Yes, okay. I had an extra 9 in there for a split second.
All right.
Oh, okay, all right, that's what,
Making
yeah,
this
that was
confusing.
printed here, so, okay. And we seconded, okay, discussion.
I have opposition because I would like to use general fund funds to get closer to balancing our budget, so I will be voting no on the budget as well.
Okay, so no amendments. Anybody else?
So the mill rate for 100,000 on a house for somebody who's
How many 100,000 houses we have left in Manitowoc County?
$200,000 house.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, originally, if we took in the memo, it showed the graph of, if you take that $100,000 house, and I understand, you essentially double your figures. With the increased value would be at $115,900. Okay, so that was, our new target would have been to be equal to what our $7.20 originally was projected for the referendum, would become $6.32. With the state biennium budget came substantial increases in voucher costs, and so the district had increases in the number of vouchers and the voucher costs. So that was really attributable to most of the amount that it went up, along with additional open enrollment expenses and other very small budget adjustments. So it brings it up to $6.65, which is still substantially lower than the $7.20, but looking at things on an equal playing field, it becomes a little bit above that $6.32 amount. If we were to levy to our full extent, which this is important to know. So, right now, if we would have fully levied, it would have been a mill rate of $7.49, and the tax payment would have been $853 in that case, where it's $757, and so it's $96 less on the same value home. That's the amount impact. So we are, 37 cents higher than where we would have wanted to be, or 33 cents, excuse me, but we aren't fully levying our full authority. So that's just notable to the public that we did always intend to not levy to the max if we did not need the full amount.
So the tax levy is $6.65.
Well, the full tax levy, when we approve it, it's a dollar amount, and that we model it on that 13.9%, but what is tricky to understand also is that varies by municipality. So the impact in Newton versus town of Manitowoc Rapids is going to vary a little bit, it just depends, so.
Okay, Tony?
And just following up on our conversation earlier, if I understand it right, when we look at the operating referendum that was approved last year, we're going to be drawing $3.1 million below that amount. Is that an accurate statement?
Correct. When you have the amount that we were able to get with the operational referendum plus the additional that we got from the state, because it was $325 per pupil and $11,000 per pupil for the low revenue ceiling, which is a huge substantial change. I mean, on record since the revenue limit formula was put into effect, there's never been that dramatic of a change. So using the best information at the time available, we, said that we needed all that money for the operational referendum, and we still did need a portion of it for sure, because we increased $5.2 million, but we're able to under levy 3.1. So, the board ultimately has that authority every year through the budget process to, use its full revenue limit authority or approve a lower amount as proposed in this budget.
And just to clarify my understanding, at times we're really kind of guessing on what those funding levels will come from the state as we're developing the budget, which is why it's kind of a moving target until we have clarity on that at this point. But
yes.
And just so the public knows, like the positive out of all this is that at least, we asked for that operating referendum last year, and we're being as cost conscious as we can on how much funds we actually need to take from it. So we could have taken an extra $3.1 million, but after a lot of due diligence, the leadership here at the district has decided that, hey, we don't need the full amount. We're just going to take what we need. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody, obviously, and everybody else for your hard work on this. It's a huge budget. I've looked at a lot of government budgets, but this is a big one.
Yeah.
So it's amazing what was done. I also thank you so much for this memorandum, this brief 17-page memorandum that's really helps you. I know it seems hilarious that the 17-page memorandum really is the big picture view of this budget, but it really is. And it's a very helpful one for people trying to understand the budget. I encourage you to either go online and see it. If you're here, grab one, because this is a very helpful document to understand both where we've been, where we're going, and what the influences are that affect how our costs change and how we have to address them. So, and it's really well put together and very helpful, so thank you.
I just have one question, Angela. When we had, for the preliminary budget, we had decided that we were gonna take some money out of general fund to get to a balanced budget, thank you. A balanced budget, and I remember it being to the tune of 782,000 of some sort. It's $1 million now, correct?
Yeah, it would have been around, if we would have wanted to come down over $1 million out of fund balance, which for general operational expenses, I wouldn't advise that level, because in a way, you're setting yourself back for the future as well, because you have to come up that much more. That's one way to look at it, so you set it where it is now. But we could say, well, we're gonna take, we have $267,000 or $76,000 deficit already budgeted, correct? So you could say, okay, we want to make it 800,000 deficit, and then that would just come out of fund balance, and that would change the levy amount, that would reduce that as well.
Are we looking at a $20 million fund balance here?
That is what our fund balance is.
Could we get away with $19 million on our fund balance?
You can, but I mean, the other thing is we want to really stray away from using your fund balance for general operational expenses, because then when you go at staffing expenses the next year, you're gonna have the same expenses, and then you're gonna want to come up from there. So, and we don't know what that, so we can, as the board, you can decide to do that. When we educated the public on the referendum, we did show that this year was going to be a substantial increase because the mill rate was so low last year. So even if you do, coming up from $5.51 to, it's, let's say you said you wanted to make it $6.32, whatever that ended up being, you're still gonna have an increase, notable increase from the year, and the dollar amount difference is very small. At the end of the day, even taking what's proposed at the $6.65.
Any other comments or?
Nice work.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All those in favor
I
of
did the
the,
motion and the second for the budget to do.
Tony,
Tony made the motion and Chris did the second.
Okay, that was to combine them.
And that's we did.
Then after that, he did it
You
again.
did, okay, I'm sorry, I missed it.
Yeah.
And then we need a roll call vote.
Okay.
okay.
Sorry. All right, Christopher Abel,
Aye.
Biff Hansen,
Aye.
Matthew Phipps,
Nay.
Stacy Seldner,
Aye.
Matthew Spalding,
Nay.
Gary Trask,
Aye.
Tony Vostelica,
Aye.
Okay, textbook proposals, finally. What can I do with textbook
We referenced
proposals?
those earlier in the
Yes.
meeting.
Is that today?
Yeah, that was still today, yes.
You have a memo in which you were given that outlines these adoptions, the process that was used. We have a AP environmental science book, an environmental science book that will be working for two of our classes, and a biology book. And joining me here for any questions you may have, and again, thank them for their time, Aronati Meyer, who is our department chair for the high school, and Jen Peterson, who teaches one of the courses. Two of the courses, the environmental science courses. So again, you have the information, and if you have any questions for the team, we'd be happy to entertain those now. We're looking, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you, our recommendation is for you to forward it through our 30-day public review process, at which time we'll bring it back to you, give you any feedback that we receive, and then recommend full passage.
I would just ask just some highlights about what you liked about the materials, and how you felt like they'll enhance what we're doing versus the stuff we had previously.
I'll speak first for the AP Environmental Science textbook. AP Environmental Science has been taught
It's been taught once, I think, since I've been there in 19 years.
yeah, so the textbook that was there was the first edition. So as the AP taking on that class. This is the most up-to-date version. It's the version from last year. They also revamped the curriculum in 2020, so you needed to make your book align with what the College Board as well.
Okay.
So the College Board has 2 textbooks that they recommend, and you must choose one of them. I chose the Freeland-Ryland because at the beginning of every chapter, there is a problem that is presented to the students. They get background, and then they are very much solution-based. That's what AP is about. So my job is to teach what the content is.
Okay.
And the problems, like how does the ecosystems work and how it flows, what the scientist knows. A problem is presented to them, and then the students have to come up with solutions. And that is what their free response questions will be when they take their test, and they will be all mostly solution-based.
Okay.
And the textbook is very, very good at creating scenarios that are very much real life, what they'll see. My background is environmental science. I have a minor in environmental science and in environmental education. So the book aligns with also what I was, it's been a long time since I've been through college. I've also been in the district for 28 years, so I do know that the textbook. The biology textbook is also a textbook that I will teach from as well. Our textbook updating from 2013 or 12 or something like that. It's
I think
been over
10 or
10
more
years, so the content in the book also. As well as this book also goes with a solution-based problematic. The kids are presented with a problem, must come up with their solutions, critical thinking skills.
Excellent.
The aquatic environmental science and terrestrial environmental science book was selected kind of for the same reason. It follows a lot of the claim evidence reasoning logic that we push with our kids. The other thing is that our current textbook is written at a college level, and the kids that are enrolled in those two classes are, I think, if you look at the numbers, like a third to half of those students either have an IEP or an EL student, and so their Lexile levels just aren't at a college textbook level. So if we want to encourage reading, we need to have a textbook that's at the level for our students. And so that's one of the big things where it's like, we just don't have that right now.
All right, so we need a motion, a second. This is to, not the formal adoption, but to put this out for review for 30 days.
Put it out.
Move to put it out with Biff, seconded by Nancy Phipps. Okay, any questions, discussion?
Thank you for your efforts.
Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and our next item is the increase in the substitute teacher pay rates. Mike?
Yes, thank you. Just want to open up with how this all came about. Last Thursday morning, I got a text from Heidi, and Heidi said, "Hey, Mike, look at the substitute teacher rate that's being paid in Sheboygan on a casual day-to-day basis." And imagine that. They were paying $200 a day. We were paying $150. So when I came in last Thursday, I talked to Heidi a little bit, and she said, "Hey, Mike, I really think that from what I'm hearing from my sources, that Sheboygan they're filling their teacher vacancies." I said, "Interesting." I honestly didn't believe her, but interesting.
So you didn't believe me.
I emailed their HR person, Jamie Hens, and she had Missy Keel call me Friday morning, and I said, "Missy, I have my opening question, true or false? I hear Sheboygan does not have a problem filling their teacher vacancies." She said, "That's true." I thought, wow. I said, "Okay, what do you attribute that to?" She says, "I think it's because we're paying more, and we're attracting people from outside of Sheboygan County." So I thought, okay, anything else? "Well, we have a lot of schools, a lot of choices." I said, "Okay, well, thank you. So I came back and talked to Jim right away, and Jim said, I think we gotta move forward on this." So here's our current reality now. With that being said, in the month of October, just the last 15 days, school days, we had a 3.5 of our teacher vacancies went unfilled. So that's district-wide. So 3.5, maybe it doesn't look like a big number to you, but what that really means is, for the most part, because we really make it a priority to fill the elementary, because those are really problematic when you go to a teacher in a classroom to take care of business. So basically, probably for the most part, our middle school or high school or secondary buildings, 3.5, that means we have internal people covering those pieces. Well, what happened by the end of last year, our internal people, they got tired. I mean, every day they were filling in these positions. So that's one piece of information I want to give you. We have about 90 people signed up, registered to sub in this district. However, 30 of those people don't ever sub. They're just on paper. 30 of those people seldom sub, and 30 are active. So we really only have 30 active people subbing out there on a daily basis, that kind of thing. We also have 6 schools with full-time subs. We're fortunate there, but we have 3 we still haven't been able to fill. I mean, the labor market is, as you all are well aware, is very thin. So, and this document that I shared with you relative to the rate changes. As you can see, this was done in October of 2021, so 2 years ago. A lot has changed on the labor market in 2 years. It's gotten tighter, and people are recognizing that, and obviously wages are going up. If you were to approve this increase tonight, my projections and Angela's projections about, if all the positions were filled externally, about $27,000 for the rest of this year. There is a cost to it. So with that being said, I'm proposing that we increase our rates. I'm hopeful that if we do, we're going to find, we're not going to eliminate all of our sub-issues, but I'm hopeful we're going to find ourselves more in the vein of the school district south of us, obviously, relative to where we're at on a daily basis with filling our substitutes, our vacant teacher vacancies.
Mike, how about locally, Two Rivers, are we competitive with them?
I appreciate bringing that up, Stacy, because last June, we in the HR department studied everybody around us. And we realized Sheboygan was paying a little bit more, but we were in the ballpark with pretty much everybody else. We'll just stick it out. What I learned today, and I can't remember my source, but I think it was over at Washington with Bill Berkshire. I think he told me, because I was sharing some of this with him, and he said to me, Valor's also just increased their rates. So I don't know, that's what I was told.
Okay.
So, you know, so it's just becoming a little bit more competitive, and I think this is our best chance to see if we can make a difference in the next 6 months. I really do. Tony, I'm sorry.
How is this gonna impact our budget for subs, or if at all?
We do already projected an increase in the cost of subs, so that would cover this increase.
Does this put us even or a little bit above or what?
We would still have a little bit of play. Because I think it's supposed to be, hold on.
I mean, it would put us ahead a little bit?
I think Angela, 71,000, I have that memorized.
Yeah, yes.
Angela increased the budget, sub-budget by about 71,000. This takes us up to 27,000, we're still in the positive.
Oh, I guess what I meant was what we're offering substitute teachers. Does this put us even with everybody or does it put us ahead of everybody?
This puts us even with Sheboygan. I do not know, based on that increase that I heard today about Valor's, but this would put us ahead of Two Rivers, Kewanee, Mishicot.
I'd like to see us go ahead, even if it's $10, just.
Yeah, we're ahead.
Ahead,
We're
okay.
ahead. Yeah, this would put us ahead, from what I know.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
Do we do anything for people who retired from our district?
Yes, well,
Something.
do we? I
Return.
mean,
They have their own category.
Certified teacher.
Yeah.
They get a little bit of a
So-
premium.
So a DPI retired teacher, so somebody retired from the Manitowoc School District and a DPI certified teacher on a day-to-day basis.
Do we do, I guess what I'm asking, do we do anything just for people who retire from Manitowoc Public Schools?
For the long-term rate, we do a little bit more.
Okay. Because I know that one of our local districts does that for people that have worked in the.
Good. Okay.
Okay, so motion,
I would like to make an amendment if any, I would like to make a motion to make an amendment to this adjustment and saying that the long-term subbing could be consecutive 4 days. So I'd like to lower that down to 4 days. Just because the longevity of a long-term sub, I would really like to reward them for being here in the place of the teacher for whatever reason. So I would make an addition to compensate them for that a little sooner because they're long-term. So that's what I would.
I would just make the motion how you want it since there isn't one on the table. So you don't have to follow what's being recommended, just make yours.
I make a motion to accept the rates changes from the daily rates to long-term subbing. However, the caveat, the long-term subbing assignment be 4 consecutive days instead of 5.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
I'll be recusing myself because I've been working with state legislators to try and make it possible for certified, licensed board members to have at least limited subbing days in school districts every year. So it would be inappropriate for me to vote on this while I'm trying to accomplish something that would relate to it.
Okay. And Angela, I would ask you with the change to the 4 days versus the 5, any issues financially you see with that or?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it's really, minimal.
Typically, a long-term substitute, such as maternity leave, something.
Yeah, sure.
Major
Yeah.
surgery of some sort.
Yeah.
Does it give us an edge by doing 4 versus 5?
I think usually if they're gonna be doing 4, they're typically doing 5,
Right.
but in some cases not, so
Yeah,
it's. It depends.
Any other discussion?
Do you guys think it's a good idea or not?
There was a second, was there?
Yeah, there was.
Good second.
Oh, I don't know, was there?
Yes, slowly
Okay.
second, I seconded it.
Okay, thank you. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next item is our, the income protection program.
It's a pillar of our strategic plan.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you again. What happened last spring, we had a situation in Lincoln High School where we had a staff member who fell upon some hard times. And as a result, exhausted all of his or her sick leave.
Yeah.
And Lee was principal at the time, obviously, and Lee and I and one of the departments up there worked very closely, and we worked some magic to take care of the person. However, out of that came where Jim stated to me, he said, Mike, I want you to take a look around and see what kind of programs are out there relative to helping our staff when they do fall in some tough times, so that we have some program in place that, and I call it the income protection program, because we are protecting their income at the end of the day. And so, I looked around the state, my colleagues and stuff like that, and they're pretty rare out there. However, what I came upon was one south of us again. This is interesting, just happened to be that night, one south of us in Sheboygan. And the more I read about it, the more I learned about it, the more honestly I became like, I think this is the direction we should go. And here's some of the positives and the reasons that I really believe that this is a program that we should get behind and put in place. And that is, the staff members at the end of the day, they have an opportunity to make a decision as to whether they want to donate, contribute to this person or not. So it puts some control right in their hands relative to that. Both the staff members and the district have some fiscal responsibility of sharing the fiscal needs of the staff member, meaning that when you donate a personal day or you donate a vacation day, you're contributing something of value. The district, when we are taking care of the employee, the staff member's income, the district then always continues to provide their benefits. When they go on unpaid leave, at a certain point in time, the district says, okay, now your benefits are also unpaid, you gotta pick that up. So the fiscal sharing here is that the employees are giving something and the district is giving something. So we're in this together to take care of our people. When they donate days, they're donated on a first submission basis. So if Angela needed 22 days but ended up getting 44, the first 22 people that came in, we used their time, but the next 20 people, we basically gave the days back to them, obviously, that sort of thing. And the other thing that frankly I like about it, HR is not making the decision on whether they qualify for the program or not. We aren't. The employee making the request tells his or her story, tells us whether, hey, I'm going to just do it with my colleagues, or I'm just going to do it with my building, or do it with these buildings, or do it district-wide. It's not putting that burden on the district to say, yeah, you qualify or you don't qualify, that sort of thing. And to sum it up, I mean, we're providing income protection for a staff member that falls upon some difficult fiscal times and try to take care of people.
Great concept.
I think it's worth trying, and I would recommend that we give it a shot.
Yeah, I want to move that we vote for that in the affirmative, yeah.
Okay, is there a second? Biff for second?
Is there any potential conflicts of interest that could potentially arise that you foresee at this moment?
conflicts of interest such as.
Just starting this program, like any things that you're kind of did your due diligence, ask questions, again, any potential problems?
I don't think so, because at the end of the day,
Is it a first come, first served for the person that says I'll donate and there's a list of 100 people? They just take the first?
like if the person needed 22 days.
Yep.
And it took 42, and whoever donated day 1, day 2, day 3, day 45, theirs goes in and theirs gets used,
Okay,
but then the next 20 go back.
okay.
That's the way it's
First come,
supposed
first
to work.
served. Sounds good.
Yep.
Anything else? I mean, that was just a random question I had.
Yeah.
Did you see any other potential downfalls
No, I mean,
or risks?
everything that I was told from Sheboygan was positive. I have shared it with representatives from the MEA, the paras, the custodial, the maintenance people. There is some concern that maybe people wouldn't donate their one personal day if they only have one personal day. But that's a decision they have to make when it comes down to that. We'll see where it all goes. If these are rare happenings. These are rare happenings. When they happen, if we have something in place, we'll implement it and see how it goes.
And how are we gonna roll this out or educate our staff about this potential ability to donate time?
It'll be a communication from HR to the entire staff with the same 4 documents that you all received.
Just as a blanket statement in the beginning? As you know, or is it gonna come, what I'm saying? How are we not gonna lose that? How are the staff gonna be aware of it hypothetically in 6 months from now if they, got rid of the email? I'm just saying, how is it gonna be reoccurring that they know that this is a potential program for them to
Department
donate?
chairs will tell them,
First of all, by communicating in the very, very near future, if it happens this week, we're communicating, everybody's gonna know. Secondly, it can be something that's communicated to the principal, so when somebody, falls upon some hard times.
As long as we follow up with that,
Right.
the principal responsible for it, that sounds great.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion or questions for Mike?
I would just say thank you.
You would.
I would just say thank you.
Oh, yeah, really.
Great, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, we are coming up on 8:11. One idea I have is to push our policies to our next meeting and go into our closed session. Would that be okay with everybody, or?
Sure. They come thick and fast, don't they, these policies?
Yeah. So we'll just adjust our schedule.
Do you want me to reduce them?
Yeah.
I just think I think a couple of them were like.
Oh, yeah, they're very mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's gonna be some like that
They're complicated.
we're almost, so we're trying to get to the point where the critical ones are taken care of, and then we'll go through the different
Yeah.
things.
I think it's fine. I just think let's do that for tonight. Hopefully we won't have some of these bigger items.
All right, like reading the letters.
But before that, just a couple other things. Our meeting dates, just looking into the future, December 26th, which is typically our special meeting, is over winter break. And our March 26th meeting is our second meeting of the month. That's during spring break. So in anticipation of that, with staff being out and for everyone to prepare, we are looking to not have that second meeting of the month. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes, somebody's gonna fight you.
Special meetings, you get to call them or not call them.
This is right. So anticipate that we will not have that one December 26th or March 26th. And if there is a second meeting needed, we will just add that at that time if there's something to do beforehand. And then our next meeting will come up in the second Tuesday of the month.
November 14th.
November 14th. So we will do that, and I think that's it. So,
Stacy, did you have any remarks from the board president?
I don't have any for tonight yet. Thank you. All right, so If that is all, we can go ahead and move into closed session. The Board of Education will vote to convene a closed session for the purposes of considering the following matter: considering the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. The meeting is authorized pursuant to section 19.85 subsection 1C of the Wisconsin statutes to discuss superintendent evaluation progress, goals, and objectives. And we would need a motion in a second.
Motion.
Okay,
I'll second.
second, okay. And then a roll call vote.
Christopher Abel. Vic Hansen.
Here, hi. Here.
Matthew Phipps.
Here.
Stacy Seldner.
Aye.
Matthew Scully. Gary Trask. Tony Hostelka.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so 8:14, we will be in closed session.